Hi, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Sola Butler. I am a licensed clinical therapist and a certified professional life coach. And I empower women to go from burnout to balance by using realistic self care toolkits that fit their busy schedule. So, over the years of being a mental health professional, I noticed that a lot of women would struggle with burnout. They had a lot on their plate, they felt overwhelmed, and it was very difficult for them to set healthy boundaries. So when I did research on stress management programs or burnout prevention programs, it became very evident to me that a lot of those programs were not meeting the specific needs of women because they were not focusing on particular areas that were very important. And one of the areas I want to talk about today is our emotional health. So a lot of these programs were not focusing on emotional health. And the reality is that if we do not stay on top of our emotional health, we could be on that path to burnout. So, emotional health is extremely important. Now, you might ask, what is emotional health? So, emotional health is an awareness of your emotions. So, you're able to name your emotions, you're able to identify where you feel them in your body, and then you are able to exhale or release those emotions in a healthy way. Now, if we do not stay on top of our emotional health, we could potentially burn out. Now, when we look at emotions, one thing I always share with my clients is that the E is next to motion. So that means that the emotions are going to move. So, what we want to do is we want to learn how to be the pilot so we can get on top of our emotions and channel those emotions in a healthy way. And that is why emotional health is so important. Because the reality is that we live in a society where we have been taught that there are positive emotions and then there are negative emotions. And then I come here to tell you that there's no such thing as negative emotions. All emotions are good. So if we look at the emotions that are classified as negative, anger gets a bad rap, jealousy, shame, guilt are often labeled as negative emotions. Now, I tell my clients that all emotions are good because emotions are storytellers. They're there to tell you a story. And if you push an emotion away because you say to yourself, I cannot feel this way, then you are not listening to the story that the emotion is trying to tell you. You are pushing away the story. So we want to welcome emotions without judgment. So I'm not going to judge the emotion. I welcome the emotion to understand the story behind it. Why am I angry? Why am I feeling guilty? Why am I feeling shame? There's always a story behind that. And once we know what that story is, then we can decide what we want to do with that story in a healthy way. Now, an example that I give is two songs that are great examples of the artist welcoming the emotion. So the first one is Billie Holiday. So I love Billie Holiday, and she has a song called Good Morning Heartache. So whenever I listen to that song, the first thing I say to myself is that Billie Holiday is welcoming heartache. So she's telling heartache to come in, and she actually says, sit down. That's a great example of processing an emotion. She's not pushing heartache away. She's saying, come in, let me hear the story that you're trying to tell me. Another group that I like is Simon and Garfunkel. So I'm a child of the 70s. I was born in the 70s. So I grew up with my parents listening to Simon and Garfunkel. And there's a song called Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. So again, what he's doing in that moment is saying, oh, you're here again. Come on in. What's going on? Let's sit with this. Let's process this. Let's know the story. And then how do we release this in a healthy way? So I always teach my clients, welcome emotions. Do not push them away because emotions will move regardless. Remember, the E is next to motion, so it's going to move. So, what are some of the consequences when we don't stay on top of our emotional health? So, people report increased anxiety and depression. So, persistent feelings of sadness. They feel like they're in this black hole they can't get out of. They talk about worrying. They talk about fear. They talk about dread. Again, they're not staying on top of their emotional health. Another thing that you notice is what I call negative outlook. So you have a lot of negative thought patterns. And as a result, your outlook tends to be negative. Nothing is going well for me. Everything is hopeless. I'm not going to get through this. That tends to happen when we're not processing our emotional health. And not to mention the impact it has on our interpersonal relationships. So if I'm not staying on top of my emotional health, I'm definitely not recognizing the emotions of others. So I'm less emotionally intelligent when I am overwhelmed. When I feel like I'm exhausted emotionally, I'm overwhelmed emotionally. So I'm not present for myself, I'm not present for others. And then lastly, when we are not taking care of our emotional health, we do not show ourselves self compassion. We're not compassionate to ourselves. We're not empathetic. We notice a lot of self defeating thoughts, and we're definitely not compassionate and empathetic towards others in our lives. So, those are the consequences of not staying on top of our emotional health and how that could put us on the path to burnout. So, one thing I tell my clients to do is to wave your emotions. Waving your emotions is a great way to process them. So, what is wave? So, the W stands for welcoming your emotion. The A stands for attend to your emotion. The V stands for validate the emotion. And the E stands for exhaling the emotion in a healthy way. So, if you would like to know more about how to wave your emotions, if you would like to know more about my coaching program, then I want to ask you to join my free Facebook group, which is called Burnout to Balance Women's Community for Self Care and Wellness, where we share a lot of amazing tips on what you can do every single day to stay on top of your mental health. I would love for you to join the group, and I would love to see you at the summit. There's a lot of great speakers with a lot of wonderful information to share. And I'm so excited to be a part of that summit because it is all about women empowering other women so we can be who we want to be. So thank you again for listening to my talk, and hopefully I'll see you at the summit and in the Facebook group.